Good morning once again. Speaking up because of this weak mic, I've deactivated AOL so I don't get Joanna Lumley coming in saying you have email. Go away, Joanna. And trucking in the 60s when I first started. And in those days, the old bangers, the old Atkinsons with the Gardner 180 and 240 engines, designed originally as a marine engine. And the old 180 I had when I used to run regularly up and down to Scotland, it never let me down. Ever so reliable. Heaters, forget it. You got more heat from a fucking candle. And you know what the winters are like in Scotland. And I was known then, we were all known as trampers, tramping all over the country, picking up and delivering loads. The trunkers, who run between warehouses up and down motorways like Eddie Stobart, were nowhere to be seen. In those days, we were the trampers driving the old bangers. The old Leylands, the AECs were brilliant. AEC Regent and the Mandator was the creme de la creme. They were bought by Volvo and redesigned for the Volvo trucks because they were a brilliant engine. At one time I had a Scamel with a gate change. What a fucking laugh that was. Uh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'll start again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No neutral. If you missed a gear, you had to stop. There are no motorways. Back to normal. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you had to double the clutch and make sure you got the change right. Because if you didn't, that was it. No fucking neutral. And of course, no power steering. No power assisted clutches or synchromesh gears. And you had to get your arse out the seat. Carrying 20 tonne at that time, these Stamp 9 work pipes up to Nig Bay, north of Inverness, for the oil rig bases and other such heavy loads up there. And you had to get your arse out the seat. Going up there, the old A1, up through the centre of Doncaster, through Darlington, Gateshead, Newcastle, Berwick-on-Tweed, through Edinburgh, up Princess Street, no bypasses. And I once parked up at Perth, and the snow was unbelievable. No beds in the cab. You either stopped in transport digs, or I had 2 planks of wood, which I rested on the engine in the middle, on the from the engine in the middle onto the near side door, and a roll of foam mattress and a sleeping bag. You didn't get undressed, you just got under the sleeping bag, chucked an old blanket over you, and woke up in the morning, and fuck hell, just as well you got a good antifreeze mixture because it was bloody cold. The snow was piled high. Well, the plough had just left Perth, and I followed it along the A9 up to Inverness. 120 mile, took me about 6 hours to get there. The snow, and well, I kept going. I got a very heavy load, so it held the truck down, and right on the top I saw this cafe. What a welcome sight that was. Put in there and had a lovely breakfast, and eventually got up to Inverness, and yeah, the good old days. No power steering, as I say. The clutch was one big heavy spring, and when you press that up and down, God knows how many times a day, your left knee, it fucking hurt. And the gearboxes, the old the ZX gearboxes and the David Brown box in a square. Where's my hand? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then split 5, 6, 7, 8. Crash, of course. You know, double clutch change. Synchromesh gears were a long time coming in those days. The loads were handball loads. In other words, you loaded them by hand, 200 bags loaded by hand, a sheet over them and ropes, or 200 bricks loaded by hand, back-breaking work. And when you get to the customer, you have to offload them by hand. There were no automatic fucking things that lifted the load off for you in those days. Punctures, you had to change them yourself. You couldn't just pick the phone up and get a tyre company out to you. You had to get your spare wheel out, and I helped a driver once near Scotch Corner. He was struggling in bad weather under his heavily laden trailers, and he got a puncture, and I stopped and helped him to jack it up and change the wheel. And then we stopped in a cafe at Scotch Corner, and he brought me a breakfast. I says, "You don't have to." He says, "My pleasure, mate, my pleasure. It was good of you to stop and help me." And of course, in them days, lots of cafes, and a breakfast was about, in today's money, about £1.50 for a good breakfast. Now, not being a chauvinist, but the women truckers, the dolly birds who now drive the big Scanias and the Volvos, they could never have handled these monsters that I and others used to handle, because eventually the foreign trucks started to arrive in the country. I think Fiat were one of the first, and of course power steering. Wow, you could spin the wheel with one finger. Power assisted clutch, you blow on it and the fucking thing used to go down. And wonderful synchromesh gears. Now they're automatic, and of course once you get used to the size and the length of them, well, you know, the lady drivers can drive them. I said not being a chauvinist. Well, I'm afraid I can be a chauvinist when the women start bragging about driving the trucks. Because, alright, you call me a boring old fart if you want, but as I've just explained, in the early days of tramping up and down the country, transport was far different to what it is today. But then along came the foreign vehicles, the Volvos, the Scanias, Mercedes, DAF, and the big warehouses, and along came the trunkers like Eddie Stobart driving up and down the motorways in between the warehouses. And in the early days, who was it said about wearing a tie? A fucking tie? God, after you've been crawling underneath, changing tyres and humping bricks and bags and wearing a tie. Do me a favour. No beds in the cab, I did say, didn't I? Yeah. And when the foreign trucks were coming into the country, would you believe we were still making the old Albion Clydesdale? Where's my hand? The fucking gear stick was way behind you. You had to hold your hand right out, you know, and at the back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and at the end of the day it was, oh God. And we were still making them when the foreign trucks started rolling in the country. So transport in those days, and I'm sorry if I've upset anyone with my Eddie Stobart video, I will take back what I said about him rotting in hell. No, that was not nice. I do take that back. You should not speak ill of the dead like that. But that's about the only thing I will take back. And I've got a good mate, Kev, who I know he started at the age of 21. I met him at the age of 21. He's been a good mate and he still is. And he will back me up on anything I've said. And I've waffled through, and the time's gone on, yeah. And my granddaughter's going to come here today. She says, it looks a mess, Grandad. Well, I don't think it looks that much of a mess, does it? I mean, I'm 72 soon, and for the age of 72, I've still got plenty of hair, although it's a bit thin on top now. Oh, look at me bald patch. Oh dear. Well, you know, we are what we are. We must accept ourselves for what we are. And talking to Andrew this morning, who's back from Switzerland, before he starts his new contract with the BBC World Service in London, and lots of the old sayings are very true. It's the simple things in life that can give so much pleasure. Things that people would think are relatively unimportant, but that can give you so much pleasure. It's very true, that. A lot of truth in these old sayings. And I hope this is okay. It's gone on for 8 minutes. So that was trucking in the 60s, before the glory days now, with the wonderful Volvo, Scania, Mercedes, DAF, Iveco, wonderful things. Once you get used to the size of the vehicle and the length, well, anybody can drive them, like the women can drive them, the dolly birds at Felixstowe. Who jump out the big Scanias and come tripping in with the notes looking like fucking Karen Carpenter. And I'm afraid old-fashioned, boring old farts like me can be rather bigoted. But as I say, I am what I am. So, all the very best. Where's the fucking thingy? I can't find it. Come on! Stop it. And I shall be back at some time with it. Bye!